In the mid-1800s, educator and spiritist researcher Allan Kardec published a book called Heaven and Hell. In it, he documented dozens of conversations with spirits of the dead, communicated through mediums during spiritist seances. He participated in many of the conversations himself. These accounts ranged from suffering souls and repentant criminals to ordinary people. One of the most remarkable testimonies was the case of Clara Rivier. Clara died at 10 after years of paralysis, convulsions, and pain, yet those around her said she never complained. She comforted her family, spoke often of the future life, and even predicted the exact moment of her death. After her passing, strange disturbances reportedly shook her parents' house, and when her spirit was later evoked, she claimed her suffering had a purpose and that the events after her death were meant to convince others that another life is real. Clara's case begins with a contrast that is hard to ignore. She was only 10 years old, yet from the age of 4 she had been unable to use her limbs. Her life was marked by convulsions and chronic pain. Still, the account says she never complained. Instead, she comforted her family and spoke with a serenity that seemed far beyond her age. Her story is presented not simply as the tragedy of a sick child, but as the life of someone who seemed to understand suffering in a way the adults around her did not. When she was later asked how she had endured so much, Clara answered, "My physical pain was held in check by a greater power, that of my guardian angel. My guardian angel lessened what I felt and made my will stronger than my suffering." One of the most arresting details in the interview is that Clara reportedly knew when she would die. She had spoken of it beforehand, and after death she explained that this knowledge had come from the guardian spirit who had stayed beside her through her illness. In the interview, this is presented as more than intuition. It is described as precise foreknowledge. According to the interview, Clara explained it this way: "My guardian angel told me when it would happen. My guardian angel was never mistaken." After Clara's death, she was evoked, and the first thing she said was simple and direct. She was there, beside them, ready to answer. Allan Kardec asked how a child so young and uneducated could have spoken with such elevated ideas before death. Clara's answer was that those ideas came not only from the short time she had spent in this life, but also from a previous incarnation. She said she had once been a medium and that she had returned among them with that spiritual sensitivity still intact. Here are some of Clara's first replies. "I am beside you, ready to answer your questions. From the short time I had to stay in your world, and from my previous incarnation. In my previous incarnation, I had been a medium, and I was a medium when I returned among you. I felt and saw everything I said before death." Kardec then asks the question that sits at the center of the case. Why would a child have to endure so much suffering so early in life? Clara's answer is stark. She says her infirmities were the result of faults from a former life. She describes that earlier life as one of health, beauty, privilege, pride, and selfish enjoyment. In her telling, the suffering of this brief earthly life was not meaningless. It was a measured reversal, meant to humble and transform her. Clara said that God's judgment on her former life was this: "I had to atone for faults from a former life. I had misused health and a brilliant position." God said to her, "You enjoyed greatly, without limit or restraint. You will suffer in the same measure. You were proud, so you will be humble. You were vain of your beauty, so you will be like a broken reed. Instead of seeking your own selfish satisfaction, you will seek charity and kindness." Clara does not describe herself as heroic in isolation. Again and again she points to help from a guardian angel. In her telling, this presence softened the force of her suffering, strengthened her will, and told her the moment her life would end. The interview presents her endurance not as mere resignation, but as sustained spiritual assistance. She described that help very directly. "My physical pain was held in check by a greater power, that of my guardian angel. My guardian angel lessened what I felt and made my will stronger than my suffering. My guardian angel told me when it would happen." After Clara died, disturbances reportedly shook her parents' house. Kardec asks the question directly: if she loved her parents, why would she trouble them this way? Clara answers that the disturbances were not meaningless. She says her parents had to go through a trial, and that the noises and disorder were part of a mission. The events were meant to serve as a warning and as a sign to the wider neighborhood that another life exists. Clara gave this explanation for the disturbances. My parents must go through this trial, and it is my mission to guide it. Do you think there is no purpose in these disturbances? The sounds, the movements, the disorder caused by my presence are a warning to the whole neighborhood. I am assisted by other spirits who act as agents in the trial appointed for my dear parents. Clara says the disturbances were not the only sign she gave. Her younger sister claimed to see her joyfully, and Clara confirms that those appearances were real. She says she would continue returning to comfort and encourage her. In this way, the interview ties together grief, consolation, and proof. For Clara, these visitations were meant to console the family while also convincing many minds that death is not the end. She described that mission this way: through these visitations, many people will be convinced that another life is real. My parents had to undergo a trial. My sister saw only me. It will not be the last time I come to comfort and encourage her. In the last part of the interview, Clara turns from her own suffering to moral instruction. She tells her parents that charity matters more than outward status, and that the true prayer is not only spoken words, but help given to those who suffer. She warns against humiliating the poor and calls for a conscience shaped by charity. Then she brings the message back to her family. Pray, love, persevere, and bear trial with courage. Her farewell is tender but firm. She tells them they still have suffering ahead, but she also says she will remain with them. Her final teaching is among the most memorable parts of the interview. To give to those who suffer is the true prayer for spiritists. The rough, poor garment is often much closer to the golden robe than people think. Bring your social classes closer together through charity. Bring the poor into your homes. Encourage them. Lift them up. Do not humiliate them. Pray, love, and practice the love of Christ. When God sends you a trial, ask Him for help in bearing it. I will always be with you, dear parents. Grow in acceptance, charity, and love for your neighbor. Clara Rivier's testimony is one of the most striking child cases in heaven and hell. It presents suffering not as random, but as something tied to spiritual history, guidance, trial, and transformation. Whether one reads it as religious testimony, philosophical reflection, or historical spiritist literature, its message is deeply serious. Pain does not necessarily mean abandonment, and trials can become occasions for humility, charity, and growth. In Clara's case, the final word is not despair, but purpose. To read the full interview and explore other after-death experiences in multiple languages, visit lifedeathbeyondbook.com.